I think about
Uphill battle, the uphill battle.
uphill battle.
VC's won a downhill battle.
I've, downhill battle. I mean, I've been thinking about Sisyphus a lot and like rolling the boulder up the hill, and it's like it's Happy Monday again. We are Monday, January 31, 2022, and
We're well into 2022.
we are, and as Bay Area rock band Smash Mouth said, the years start coming and they don't stop coming.
That's
And
so profound.
I'm learning that it is.
So what is this about uphill battles? Who wants an
Well,
uphill battle?
I mean, so as you may or may not know, I spend a lot of time thinking about men and mythology and consciousness and the importance of an enemy, or at least the importance of drama, the hero's journey is sometimes called. I feel like the mind invents an enemy and a battle to go win. Because if there's no struggle and there's no threat, I don't think anything is possible. I feel like we need a fight to go fight. There needs to be meaningful, credible stakes. I really think that we have a hunger for danger and for trouble and for problems. And if we don't have it, we will go create it. Sort of like God. It's like, I forgot who said it, either like a Voltaire or a John Locke. It's like, if God did not exist, we'd have to invent him. And I feel like we find uphill battles to go fight because maybe the body is meant to walk uphill. And so we go find a battle.
I think if we don't have those uphill battles, we get depressed. I think that's where the depression comes from.
Yeah.
But I've got no science to back that up. Anyway, so yeah, most people that want to invest in a project aren't looking to go to war. They aren't looking for a battle, which is funny because it's all war. That's all it is, really.
Yeah, it's
People
like
think they want
calculating.
Things people think
Yeah, negotiation's interesting. I mean, world peace all hangs on, and I mean, conflict exists because a chemical equation has not been balanced. So it's like someone with some power and some resources who's holding it back. There's bottlenecks. I love looking for bottlenecks and like saying, okay, who thinks it's in their interest to hold things back when really they'd be more powerful and safer and more secure if they shared. So it's almost like you got to identify all the closed fists and all the hands that are clasped closed. And you have to say, you have to go to those people and say, yo, it's actually, let me draw it out for you. Let me do some math for you. It's actually in your interest to open up. And, trade. I mean, it's funny how, you and I have both spent some time railing against the C word, capitalism. But the longer I go, the more it's like, well, trade is what made civilization possible. And currency is so interesting.
Maybe, yeah, that's possible. I don't know about that. But yeah, that's trade as in, yeah, I guess, as in that's a peaceful idea of trade. I don't know what makes people want, like, I've never understood this because I've never sought out like power. But what makes, I don't know. I got stuck reading this book about the Napoleonic Wars, and I'm like, dude wanted to conquer the world. Like, why? That's a lot to deal with. Like, why did Genghis Khan want to? Well, Genghis Khan just got on a kick and was just like, well, this is what I do. I go and I conquer cities and go to the next one and go to the next one. Alexander the Great, what was he after? Like, I kind of wonder, like, is it just that some people, some men feel like they need to conquer something rather than trade? Oh, I'm gonna go conquer shit.
Yeah. Well, there's this distinction between cowboys and farmers. The farmer likes to stay put, understand the box he works in, understand the seasons, understand, what are the threats, the different weeds, different weevils, all the things to be worried about. Like, you got that long-term vision and you're dug in for the long haul. As opposed to the cowboy, who is always jumping fences, tearing down fences, going into new places. I feel like you need a balance of both on a team, and to like make it work, got to have the inner circle and the outer circle, right? Like, people like me and maybe you two don't really run civilization because they're always doing the new thing. They're always,
And we're artists.
Well, what about this? 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 And it's like you can't, you will die if that's the leader, if that's the compass. And so we need things like architecture. We need things, seasonal, permanent things. Buildings. It's amazing thing about, about living in New York is you walk out and it's like, oh, I've changed so much since the last time I went outside, but that building is the same. And it's like, it's been there for 60 years or 160 years, and it's going to be there for another 60 years or 160 years. It's nice.
Yeah. It allows us to be able to change.
Yeah.
Imagine if the building was changing. Some buildings change, and it makes their lives difficult sometimes.
You and I brought up two possible topics the other night when we were talking about doing an episode. I'm fascinated by what's happening with Spotify and the anti-vax information, Joe Rogan, and then Neil Young and Joni Mitchell, and now a bunch of others threatening to leave. I think it's so interesting. And it's the same problem Facebook got into of really not having the moral nerve or the political vision to say we are going to regulate. It's very interesting.
To me, it's interesting because there's so many different ways to frame that, and that you just framed it one way. Like I think it's interesting. Where are we putting the responsibility of where like one of the things about society that's so that is a truth is that we the way that we control the crazy shit that we say is we kind of reprimand you. If you say something that's erroneous, then I correct you, and the entire world would if you said it publicly. So like, isn't that the way it's supposed to work? You say something and it's wrong and you get chastised for it, and then you go, oh, whoops, I made a mistake, or you refute it and you argue. Like that's what we're supposed to be doing. But it's like in this world, we put that responsibility on Facebook, we put it on Spotify, and maybe we should. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. And that's just part of it. I mean, it's the weirdest thing to me is trying to protest somebody else's voice by limiting who can hear you. That's the weirdest part for me. It's like, I'm going to take my stuff off Spotify so fewer people can hear it in protest of what that other person is saying.
Well, it's certainly, Joe Rogan got what, $100 million deal to be exclusive with Spotify. So, I mean, first we can say, well, being an online talking head is like pro sports now. That's a very big contract that he got.
I know a lot of people have issues with that amount of money too, and I don't know how I feel about that either. Like, just be able, Spotify doesn't really pay their artists very much at all.
Terribly.
They paid Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan he generates much more revenue for the platform, I'm sure, than say my music does. but still there's something kind of unbalanced there, and we expect these platforms to be more egalitarian than they are, even though they're just products of the capitalism. They're just doing exactly what they were trained, built, and
they're doing,
and were educated to do.
Yeah, I like this distinction between professional and passionate, because I think eventually, I feel like I have such a deep rage for full-time jobs and salary, because if it's permanent, it really just takes the life out of it. It's like I think I'm so, to say morally and ethically opposed, I think I'm like chemically opposed to the idea of a guaranteed salary, because it just makes it lifeless.
I'm the same way.
It's such a hedge. It's like, I don't need to be passionate. This is where I go to like, no, but I get into all this is the kryptonite where I will fight myself. This is my uphill battle, and I invent it by closing my eyes and talking about full-time jobs. This is my hill to die on. I can feel it now. I'm wrestling with the shadow. I'm wrestling God on the cosmic beach. Sorry, our close listeners will know that I used that same metaphor and image like 9 months ago.
I feel the same way. I'm somebody who has not had a salary or full-time job in what 15 years or something like that.
Hell
Not
yeah.
more than that, to 20. uh,
Cowboy, baby.
because I feel the same way. I don't want to. I mean, like it's weird. I mean, have you ever had a job where you sold your time? Where like, have you ever had a job where your boss said you got to be here at 6 a.m. whether or not you're doing anything? Like, I just want you to be here in case I need you. And that was I
That was
can't
never
do
the
that.
framing for me. I know you mentioned that the last time we talked.
Yeah.
Um, no, that was never the framing for me. I mean, you know, I feel like any job I took, I mean, even going back to being like 14 years old, I remember needing to get a work permit from my high school to have it must have been a summer job. And it was probably that might have been junior year of high school, may have been the first time I started having, no, it was maybe sooner than that. Yeah, summer job. Um, but no, I mean,
Yeah.
like even when I was a pool and health club attendant at an apartment complex, like a pretty like upscale apartment complex. Um, I feel like any job I've taken, I've always felt like it was interesting to me, which is I'm the most anti-job person, and yet like I miss the workplace in a sense.
How long did that last though? Everything can be interesting for a short period of time. So that's my thing.
Well,
I find lots of interesting things to do, but after a year, I'm like, this is not what I thought. It's only interesting because it was new.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the thing. It's like our growth mindset is sort of antithetical to the like grow slowly. I don't know. It's like we could try founding the orgs, right? You and I could try starting a company and let's get a little bit of funding, right? We could probably get 1 million if we really thought about it and actually tried asking around and actually spent our time actually trying to get smart and figure out a good idea.
Yeah, how would this work? I don't know.
We would figure out what company we should start, and then we would go find the idea, and then we would get the funding. We would try, like, we could maybe have a team of like
It's harder
four.
it's harder than that. I just tried doing it a couple of years ago.
Well, I mean, it's simple. It's not easy. I mean, it's like
It's
the
simple,
steps.
but it's hard.
Yeah. Well,
There's a lot of chance involved in stuff too, I think. Or rather
yeah.
opportunity.
Well, where the willpower is there, the difficulties melt away, right? I mean, I think it gets back to that same thing of uphill battles and depression.
As long as
It's
it's
like,
new. As long as it's new. It wears away though. The
well,
willpower wears away, I think.
willpower wears away. Yeah, well,
And
it's
that's
like
maybe something
the
that
org has to keep changing to keep with our interests.
maybe that distinguishes people who are successful from those who aren't, is that those who are successful with their projects kind of pursue things beyond the point of them being new.
Well, I mean, that's what being a professional is. And eventually you are a professional, whatever you are a professional at, which is like, I will show up, right? Like I essentially am that boss now. It's like, show up at 6, whether or not you're doing anything. Right. Like I have a painter friend who
Right.
has shared the advice of like, you know what? Just even if you just go to the studio and sharpen pencils, that's better than not going.
Well,
Just
showing up for
go there and
yourself,
sit there.
showing
Yeah.
up for yourself is something that I do. And
Turn
that's
a
great.
crank,
Turn the
turning someone
crank.
else's crank.
I don't want to turn someone else's crank. I mean, no, there actually is an exception to that. I will turn somebody else's crank if I have like an utmost respect for what they do and I sort of have a professional crush on them. Like then
Now we're talking.
if it's somebody that I'm like in awe of and I want to learn about what they do, I'll show up at 6 and just sit there and I'll just punch in, and I want to do that. And that's happened a few times to me, but it's it's pretty rare. I hope everybody can. I mean, if we're all looking for
Yeah.
leaders, find somebody that how many people hate their bosses? We don't have to hate our bosses.
I feel like that's a young person's thing. It's a thing, like, and I think there's television that informs it, right? Now, I never watched the
Yeah.
show Silicon Valley. I've seen little clips. The show Workaholics. I think is interesting. But yeah, like, I mean, for me, like the movie Office Space, yeah, like this whole like hating your boss. I mean, I feel like hating your boss depends on having a group of people to go out after work and drink alcohol and complain about the boss.
Well, I mean, it's there's lots of different relationships. Like a lot of businesses or a lot of organizations will have, you know, hierarchies. So you have end up having multiple bosses depending on your position. But it's
Oh yeah.
and you know, my wife, she doesn't complain about her bosses, but she will often. They're not experts in what she's an expert in, but they're her management. I think so that creates a weird dynamic. You know, in this country where you get promoted to the point where you're incompetent, you know, that sort of thing.
Right.
Um, and I think that when you have to manage people who are more experts in whatever, you know, whatever it is, then it's probably going to be
Mm,
frustrating to them. Because
yeah.
what's important to you? Oh, we need to get this thing done on time. Oh yeah, well the person who's actually doing it thinks that time is not the most important thing to get it done. So,
Yeah, managers and leaders, there's a difference. And it it ends up being very jarring to go into and to all of a sudden be under someone else's microscope, right? You and I maybe both stayed away from bosses for a long time. If somehow we found ourselves underneath a boss, we would need to agree on that with that person about the meaning of time and essentially what's worth hurrying and what's not. It's a very personal battle. See, I think this is the war that we wage is over meaning and um time. It's certainly about time, and it's like, what how long should I be able to not obey, not deliver, not ship, right? I mean, it gets into the war about deadlines, and really that is a trigger for the war about how good is your delaying. How good is, and it's a funny thing about creativity and like, creative writers and researchers. It's like you need to give them time to screw around. It's like you kind of can't watch them carefully, because if they're in there sharpening pencils or smoking weed or putting music on the jukebox or the record player, it's like the manager in you is going to want to jump and say, no, become accountable, be legible. That's not good, that's not productive. But
yeah,
you have to let them screw around, and it takes someone who is also a screwer around to be that manager. Yeah,
yeah.
professional managers are the ones not qualified to do the managing. It just makes everything boring. It just makes everything lifeless. That's what causes hating your job, and it's what causes this divide between work and not work. See, I've spent too much time in creative Twitter world, and it's like I'm all in on play. I'm never obeying someone else's mode of work versus not work, because I don't distrust my soul work. I trust myself. Now that's a thing that doesn't scale. That's a thing that you can't put into a common currency. I trust myself. Right? This gets into the whole stuff about social coins and
Trusting yourself doesn't scale. Hmm.
it's a good title. It's a good question. I mean,
scale.
And again, here's where I wish we could like push a button and have a female guest come in and share her thoughts.
Things only need to scale if you're trying to conquer the world.
Yeah.
I mean, if we lived in small civilizations, small tribes, we wouldn't need to worry about. We would just need enough food for the winter.
And we have so much abundance. But so it's like, what's the hunger to quench? I mean,
I have no idea.
Well, I think I know what it is. I mean, the poet T.S. Eliot said, so much of the problem and trouble in the world is caused by people trying to be important. Right?
Yeah, exactly. It's another way of conquering the world is being important, I think. What is it that makes people want to do that? I don't know.
Loneliness, love they didn't get as a child. That's probably it. But it's like you can never be loved enough. You really can't be loved enough. No one's loved enough.
It's yeah, that's true. And and if you chase it, you're just chasing like a drug, basically. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, eventually you have to do without it, and you realize it's fine because the world is a beautiful place.
maybe it's just a game. Like maybe yeah, maybe some people just think it's a game. Maybe Elon Musk, it's just a game to him. Buy another company, be another CEO, be to like do another thing. Maybe
There's some interesting stuff about him, you know. I mean, I very much like
or
to
what's his name?
do
Amazon dude. That
Jeff
like
Bezos. Yeah,
Jeff
I
Bezos.
mean,
Why does he have to conquer everything? Why does he have to be the
well,
richest man
there's
in
an
the world twice over?
unfillable hole. There's an unfillable hole, and you know, there's been some good interviews with Musk, kind of about his childhood. And I forget it, but I've tweeted about it before, and I've kind of done some threads on it. There was a good Rolling Stone profile of him that was like, I mean, like it all goes back to either a wound or a denial or a lack, and you're trying to fill that hole, and you can't shovel enough stuff in there, right? I mean, with Musk, it's like he always ends up asking, you know, why aren't we going faster, right? He's got this vision, and the vision for him is like right on, but it's like you eventually are limited by the speed of light and sound and physics, but mostly it's about trust, you know, because a leader, you
I
know, we
guess
could look Caesar, Napoleon, Genghis Khan. It's like, so the Mongols had some very interesting like social structures of like how the pods worked in their warfare. And maybe it's just like the same with like bees. I don't know. There's a bunch of other animals like lobsters we could like look at of like how you.
well
Well,
then
yeah,
for the
conquer the
Mongols
world.
for the Mongols it was definitely a void. That's for sure because we're talking about a group of people who were marginalized. Uh,
Yeah,
Middle Ages they were marginalized in the Middle Ages. China basically stomping on them for their entire existence until they banded together and said, "Let's stop this from happening." And
yeah.
at that point, once they start fighting back and seeing that they can win and we can do this, it becomes a game to them. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. Like it becomes Jeff Bezos, it's a game. I get more money. Genghis Khan, it's a game. I'll invade the Middle East. You know, because otherwise there's no real other reason. They don't, maybe they need the resources to build their army up more, but probably not. They've got enough. What was the reason for them wanting to invade Europe? Like they don't want anything in Europe. There's nothing there that they needed.
Well,
They just,
there's more land. I mean, like the
they
goal
didn't need more
is to
land. They had a lot
spread
of land. Yeah.
the goal is to spread your seed. I mean,
And
it's very biological.
but they didn't even have a very strong cultural, they didn't have really have a strong culture that they were trying to spread. They didn't have religion that they were spreading. They didn't have, you know, there wasn't, it was purely let's go after the resources and say that we did it.
Well, didn't Genghis Khan
Not like,
father like 500 kids, like 1,000 kids?
well, sure, but I mean that or something like that. But I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure he slept with lots of women. Um, But I mean, all of his sons, you know, went on to continue conquering and be generals and stuff like that. But at a certain point, it was like that was what they were raised to do. We just go and conquer. Like we don't need
Well,
anything in
yeah.
Moscow,
I
but we're
mean,
gonna go take it
you want to
anyway.
vanquish all fear. I think that's what it is there's uncharted territory out there.
Like Christianity had a financial reason to want to be an empire
Oh, they had
because
I mean, like they had a moral, I mean, like that was more of a moral, I mean, it wasn't, you
I
know,
think it was
again,
financial.
there's ways of framing it. You can frame it economically, or it's like these early faith communities were like, this is the right way to be a human being. We
Mhm.
need to go uh illuminate the darkness, right? Now, I mean, this leads us right to America, the right and left. It's like someone we think someone's a barbarian, and it's like you are wrong, and I need to correct you. The correct way to be is actually this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
so
don't
you
think
want
Genghis
to
Khan was doing that.
spread your
I don't think he was
ideology.
trying to do that. I think I think it's very different, but it's still
Well, well,
the only
what did now? And I don't know. I mean, what did Genghis Khan do when he got to a new place and they were
basically
easily defeated?
he would either basically they put their flags there. They'd either tear it down and kill everyone inside, or they would say thanks for all your gold. We're going to go to the next town. Depends how easy it was to conquer them. But it was usually just about going one after the other until one was too hard. They tried to get into Southeast Asia, into India. They tried to get all the way down to Vietnam, and it didn't work. They were like, it's too hot. We can't do this down here.
It's too hot. Wow.
It's too hot. It's too jungly. I can't, we can't ride horses.
It's too jungly.
Too jungly. We can't get horses through here. We can't shoot from the back of horses. And it's like at that point, or the same thing happened with Alexander the Great. It's like you get to India and it's like that's a really big river I have to cross. That's a really big mountain range I have to cross. Like what is even driving you at that point? At that point, I think it's just like you've got an army and you have to feed them, so you've got to send them somewhere to go get their food. I don't know, but relating this to today, it's like what I don't know. I think so. One of the things that we started out talking about, and my thing is that if you don't have that uphill battle, if we don't have uphill battles, we get depressed because we don't know like that. When we were hunters and gatherers, we didn't have time to be depressed. This is something that I've believed for a long time, ever since I was a kid, really. Like that human beings have created depression out of modernity, out of technology, out of the things that we do to make our lives longer, easier, and better are also the things that are giving us mental health problems. And like I think that it is a void. Everyone has a void. Sometimes it's a spiritual void, sometimes it's a, you know, familial void. Maybe it's a who knows what it is, but we're always trying to fill that thing. A lot of people do fill it with religion or spirituality. Some people fill it with more businesses and more money. Some people fill it with women, family,
love.
yeah. And I think that there was one point in time when we were just trying to fill our stomachs. That's probably it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think about
Now the hunger is much more sophisticated.
there are tribes all over the world, but specifically, I remember seeing a video on some tribes in Africa that they live like primitive humans in that they live in tribes. All the men hunt, the women cook and do some other stuff around their village area. But all the aspirations of the young men is to hunt the biggest thing. Basically, it was this is what I dream of. I dream about that one hunt where I kill the biggest whatever it is, and I bring it home, and the entire village is really happy, and we have this huge celebration because I killed this thing. That's like what everybody dreams of, and of course they're just chasing. That's just Jeff Bezos and Amazon or whatever. He's just trying to hunt a bigger boar or whatever. Um, and I think that like, well, maybe there was something very innocent to that being your biggest aspiration because it was a daily thing. We were going to hunt every single day. I'm going to get a chance to achieve my goal every single day.
Well, it's nice that that things don't change. Like the men are out hunting in the outer circle, the women are in the middle, in the inner circle, and it's like everyone knows their job. It's kind of relaxing.
And just to be clear, like the gender role are probably different all over the world for all kinds of reasons, but like that is a pretty typical way that primitive humans lived.
Definitely.
The stronger ones were out hunting. The ones that were not as strong were doing other, perhaps more important or more practical or more complicated things than hunting. But
well, yeah.
But now we've basically gender fucked our world in a beautiful way, and that like we're gonna see what the effects of this are long term. I'm really excited about that. Because one of the most interesting things about the sort of revolution of LGBTQ awareness is that holy shit, we were actually so wrong about so many things for so long. That's kind of unrelated to this, but I'm curious to see where it goes when we actually realize that, oh shit, everyone born is not necessarily the way they're born. That's a weird thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we have unprecedented levels of freedom And it's sort of nice. I mean, it's in a sense, it's like the kids are being trusted to know what they are, and it's like, I'm a this, and the parents and the teachers and the peers are like, okay, yeah.
What we're probably going to end up with is a different definition for gender than gender identity than sexuality. That's going to be, those are going to be three
Gender
different
and sexuality are different. It's
gender.
it's hard to argue over genitalia. It's hard to argue over anatomy.
But I mean, like, when for the longest time we taught people, well, you're a woman if you're born with women's sex organs and can
Right,
bear children.
right.
And now we're saying, oh, that's not necessarily true. You can be a woman and be born the other way, or whatever. Like, that's so
Yeah.
gender identity is different than gender, really.
Huh.
And we're going to have two terms for them, because
Gender
that even to
identity.
have those two
Yeah.
terms is offensive to people. And so we're just going to have
Well,
two
sex,
over the new
sex. You know what sex are you?
one.
You could say I'm a male, but I'm a woman. So we could say male and female. We could say for sex, and then do you want to say man and woman, or boy or girl for gender?
I hope we can get to a point where we can be that transparent about it, because right now there's so much judgment that people don't want to talk about that. It's an uncomfortable thing to.
Well, yeah, I mean, like the American right is so funny to me, and it's funny because it's like you peel back, you dig for 6 minutes, and you find, oh, like you really see women and marriage as just sex and childbearing and housekeeping slave. I don't know, maybe that is too strong of a word, but
no, I mean, they're all levels of it's all levels of slavery. It's all levels of Stockholm Syndrome.
obedience, faith. What is Stockholm Syndrome again?
That's when you're you're kidnapped and you learn to appreciate your kidnappers, basically. It's like it's the way,
Yeah.
like having a dog is kind of like Stockholm syndrome. Like, I've basically captured this animal and I force him to live in my house and eat out of my hand. But at this point, he likes it because he doesn't know anything else. That's Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you need, I mean, it relies on imagination
That's what a
and
lot of
having a sense of it could be or should be different.
that's what a lot of gender roles are now, is probably just some version of Stockholm syndrome. We've made people appreciate the way that we've.
Hey, I mean, if you're a female and you're bisexual, I mean, that sounds like a pretty sweet ride, but I could be wrong about that.
I don't know. I don't know. It's I hope that we can have more open, like transparent conversations
I
about
mean,
it.
I
'Cause
think,
right now,
I mean, I
being a
think we
cis white
can.
male, being a cis white male, I feel like a lot of things are like
Well, I mean,
inappropriate for me to talk about or ask about. But I mean,
we haven't spent much time on Clubhouse. We haven't spent much time going and seeking out teenagers. I bet teenagers these days are batshit fucking crazy, and I wish I could be around more 19-year-olds.
I mean, I'm around some of them, but
Well, I guess now you teach college.
yeah, my youngest students are probably 18, but even then, the culture is not super strong in my classes. I do have a lot more trans students than I even knew when I was growing up. I mean,
Yeah, trans. I mean, yeah. So you're now 40. I'm 35. Is that right?
I'm 41. Yeah,
Okay. When was your birthday?
June 3rd.
Huh.
I've been 41 for a bit now. I'm turning 42.
Damn.
I mean, I knew trans. I had trans friends when I was a kid, but there were so few of them, probably because so many were repressing it, And now there's like, now my nephew, wears makeup. I don't think he's trans. He may or may not be. He's 11 years old, but there's no
That's interesting.
there's no expectation for him to be a certain way, and I think that's kind of neat. The weird thing about that is when you are a cis white male, or if you're a white male that's looking for a mate to have children with eventually, it's like, we need to be transparent about that. It's like, yeah, I might be attracted to you if you look and act like a female because I'm attracted to females, but if you can't bear children, then that's I should know about that sooner than later. but I guess that's something that comes up pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, and again, some people spend all day talking online about dating and relationships. That's their whole thing, right? Yeah, there's a lot to explore there, and it's yeah,
So Spotify,
yes.
Joni Mitchell and Neil Young.
They've taken their music off because the higher ups at Spotify let Joe Rogan. Did he have a guest who was
Yeah, so
spreading?
this is what happened, and this is what I think is so interesting. I don't think people realize this. So Joe Rogan invited a guest on who was a bit controversial because he was kicked off of Twitter for talking. He was a doctor who was responsible for a lot of the research that went into mRNA vaccines. So back in the 90s, he did a bunch of work that led to one thing after another led to the mRNA vaccine, the COVID vaccine, right? And he thinks that they're not there's problems with it, there's complications, they're not as simple as Pfizer makes them out to be, and he wants people to know about them. He's saying that they might not work. That's controversial because if you say the vaccine doesn't work, you know,
Hmm.
that you can get canceled for that. And that's problematic, I think. So a doctor who's very well credentialed, who's got like MDs and PhDs or whatever, he's done tons of research, got tons of published papers in his name, is saying, hey, there's more to this vaccine. Now,
Mhm.
I think that he kind of got adopted by the right wing and said, oh yeah, we like this doctor because we're anti-vaxxers, and he's telling us that the vaccines are bogus. So he's riding this wave of popularity. This It's kind of like Jordan Peterson, who kind of got popular among the right, even though like he just kind of rode that wave to fame. And I think that's kind of a despicable thing to do, like to ride that wave. And this doctor is doing that. So Joe Rogan had him on, and a lot of people are upset at this doctor because he's obviously using his popularity. He's using whatever he can to get popular, and that's kind of gross. But what he's actually saying is something that we should consider. Like if he's saying, like I don't know, I feel like for a long time I've been really confused about what is the right way to deal with COVID. I mean, when we were first told that masks don't help, and now they do help, and then they don't, then they do, or you can't get COVID if you've gotten it once, you can't get it again, or if you got the
Yeah.
vaccine, you can't get it, and you can't spread it. You should get the vaccine because then you
The
won't be able
CDC
to.
is full of artists.
It's like it's crazy, and they're obviously have lied to us, and that makes me feel really uncomfortable. So Joe Rogan, of course, he wants to become more popular and he wants to have controversial figures on his show, but he's also just basically saying like, hey, there's a bunch of stuff that we don't know yet, so we should get as much information as possible. And being a sort of anti-establishment person that he is, if somebody is being canceled, if somebody is being censored by the establishment, we should probably listen to that person. And at least I mean, this is the way I take it. Now, I haven't listened to the show. I don't know if he's spewing misinformation, which is what people were criticizing him for. A lot of doctors listened to that podcast and were like, this is misinformation and it's dangerous, and you're riling people up. You're riling people up to not get vaccinated, basically. And that's really, really dangerous. And we're never going to get over this pandemic if we don't get vaccinated. So, so Neil Young says, well, I'm on the side of the doctors, so I'm not supporting this. I'm going to make a big deal out of it. And yeah,
But
that's
is
what
that guy not a doctor who said all that?
he is a doctor. Oh wait, well no,
The one who
he's definitely a doctor. The one who was
the
who
who was involved with the mRNA
he's
stuff? Yeah.
absolutely a doctor. But there's some other things too, like he was responsible for a lot of the original research into mRNA vaccines, but
Yeah.
it kind of seems like he didn't get the Nobel Prize that he thought he deserved. So now he's kind of like, now is my chance, let me get on Joe Rogan and tell everybody how I invented the vaccine and how my work was great. It kind of has this a little bit of like, there's a little bit of kind of like Marvel villain aspect to it. um, but I don't know. It's a weird thing. I don't know exactly how we stop people from spreading misinformation, or if we even do. I feel like it's the kind of thing that
Well, and
education can
I
fix.
mean, it sounds like it's not misinformation necessarily.
Well, if you're telling people that the vaccine is bad, I don't know exactly what he said, but if you said don't get vaccinated because of this, I mean, we're
I
trying to get.
don't. I mean, it goes back to your first question of like who's responsible, right? I mean,
Yes.
it's just because you are going to make a different choice
Mhm.
doesn't mean it's misinformation, especially if
Exactly.
it's coming from the person who like actually did invent mRNA vaccines. I mean, it's an opinion, it's a point of view, right? And you and I know this, that artists, they all have their point of view, and it's not that like none of them are misinformation, it's information. Now the challenge becomes what to believe.
Well, it could be considered misinformation if somebody is telling lies so that they can gain popularity. If that's what's happening, and that's what he's being accused of doing. And
Yeah, I
Joe
mean
Rogan is
that's
being
one
accused
framing of it.
Joe Rogan is being accused of giving these people platforms to also for the
Sure.
popularity. And of course it's going to
Well,
quit it.
free, like, do we want free speech?
Yeah.
Do you
Do we
want
want
free
this?
speech? That means a lot of speech that you don't like.
Yeah. I I I I agree. I think that that's the way we got to do it. And maybe the way that we deal with things we don't like being said is we pull our music off of Spotify. Maybe that's
Well,
the way we
you
do it.
actually fight it with better information.
I think so
Is
too. I think
Yeah.
basically like kicking and screaming or stomping your feet and storming out of the room is probably not the way to get people the information
No,
they
you
need.
do your work. You do your you. They do their work, and you do yours.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's like sometimes Republicans win. Liberals lose a lot. That's why people don't like liberals. It's because they
Yeah.
lose.
It is. Mm.
Um, yeah, I mean, the older I get, the more I'm. It's not that I'm sympathetic to both sides, but I sort of I, I enjoy the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats of both. I can almost have like, maybe empathy is not the right word, but it's like I like thinking about game dynamics. Like much like with sports, it's been a while since I've like rooted for one team per se, and it's like I instead like good gameplay and good competition. It's like I enjoy kind of, I can empathize with different fans throughout the game, and that's kind of like part of my experience of it. Um, so I don't know, like I like when liberals do stupid things and they're selfish and they put all of their mental energy into making excuses of why they can't do things.
Well, I like when you said, "Do we want free speech or not?" That made me think like, okay, if the answer to that question is yes, let's have all the free speech that we can handle, then basically how do we filter out all of the crap that is
You have to
true?
you have to listen, and you have to post the stuff that you think is good, and we all have to listen to that.
So
So we
it
have
becomes a
to
content battle.
I mean, I maybe a conviction battle.
So if there's a bunch of people that are coming on saying the world is flat, the world is flat, the world is flat, and we basically just have to go, actually, here's the proof that it's round over and over and
Yeah.
over again. And the world is flat is not a dangerous thing to
No,
super dangerous.
someone
But
saying the world is flat, it's like, let them have zero listeners.
yeah, but if somebody like, if
If it's not true, it's not a threat.
if Donald Trump were to basically tell a bunch of lies and do that so that he could rile up his base to
He
believe
did.
in those
He
lies.
did, and they won, and they voted, and they won. Well, that's just free market research on, is it look how stupid the voters are? Is it look how hungry they are for something to believe in? It's just information. It's not a win or a loss. It's just like, oh wow, like people actually went for it.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
what's weird is that,
some people want to believe a lot. Like the truth is that you need to spend less, consume less, do with less. People don't want to do that. They say, no, I want my big truck. I
mm,
want my things. I want to celebrate 4th of July. I want to be proud. You know, people frame change in terms of loss. So they don't want to hear you tell them, we need to stop eating cows for the environment. We need to use less energy.
mhm.
They don't care. They care about pleasure more than
Right.
climate change.
Yeah.
Now that if since Trump won, that's new information of damn, it may be the United States of America is a country of people who don't really see past their own belly buttons.
Yeah. And that's something we can hopefully fix in the future. But like um so the CEO of Spotify or whatever said like I'm not gonna boot Joe Rogan off of a
Mm-hmm.
platform. But what I am going to do is I'm going to basically put up a bunch of notices whenever you click to listen to something that's about COVID or possibly related to COVID, it's going to take you to a website where there's all this kind of factual information about it.
And of course, we ignore that, just like we ignore the terms and conditions we agree to. It's like, yeah, that next.
I mean, I do notice on YouTube when I'm watching something that's related to COVID, and there's that little thing underneath it that said, "Here's
Click here for the right." Yeah,
facts about COVID." That isn't doesn't I don't read anything about that. But what I do see is that I do see that like we're basically saying like, hey, this could be garbage information that you're getting. Just warning, this could be garbage information. And I think that it's going to be like a new like parental advisory thing, but it's going to be like fact and possible
yeah.
misinformation. I don't know exactly how you do it because
But like
that's how
everything's
you educate.
misinformation.
Mm,
I mean, and I think you just have to know. It's like, and I feel like young people have this grasp on the internet that it's like everything is just like a take. Everything's just like like okay, like this person said this. It's like, well, maybe there's something good in it. Let's hear it out. I feel like kids just have a really good like like Hemingway said, you need a shock-proof shit detector, right? Like I can sit and listen to someone go blah 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 blah, and like I don't know, maybe it's just like when you get older, you've seen it all before, and so your template of what is real is already filled in, and then only marginal changes happen. Yeah, I mean, this gets into education versus propaganda, and
so
it's like, what do kids get exposed to, and who
yeah,
decides?
but what this kind of leads to for me is like what it really seems like is like the liberal America doesn't like the right wing getting riled up behind things like anti-vaccination and stuff like that. They don't want to see that. They don't want to see that bubble up and get frothy. That's bad. We don't want that to happen because that's how Donald Trump's get
Stop looking.
that's how Donald Trump's get elected. Um, and I feel like that's where it becomes censorship when we try to shut people up because of
Of
the
course, the
people
real
that
truth is
follow.
it doesn't. I mean, I really wonder how much it actually matters who the president is. I really wonder. It might just be because it's on news all the time,
Yeah,
right?
that's exactly why. I mean,
I
I
want to Trump
wonder.
like I
Wow.
want to Trump out because I wanted to watch different things on TV.
Yeah,
It's like he's just on the screen all the time. It's like
I mean, there's a lot that has changed. I mean, I don't know. There's a little bit. It seems like the president, at
I feel
least
like
the last
Biden is in
couple
the
of years,
same freaking party as Trump. Like every time I turn my head, it's like, oh,
the
Biden's
politics.
actually being very undemocratic and unliberal and not good about stuff, whether it's student loans or what. It's like, oh, he actually looks like you almost could have had me fooled. He's
Yeah.
actually doing things that seem like Donald Trump.
Yes, I agree. And they're probably funded by the same people.
They both serve the corporations. The
Exactly.
corporations are the ones that have the power. The people don't.
Corporations tend to be the ones that get the politicians elected, and the corporations they put
Pay
weak
salaries to
they
lifeless employees.
they put weak Democrats in, and they put strong Republicans in, and that's why the Republicans probably win. a lot. It's because they anyway. This is not about art. This is not.
Well, I mean, art and politics are I mean, art is politics, I think.
I I guess so. Sometimes I wish I didn't have to like think about any politics at all, but we live in a policy
Well,
world.
you have to find, you're self-employed, so you have to finance your own. So you have to have, we have to finding the artist government fit. That's the new culture fit. Artist
It's
government fit.
true. It's true. All this stuff with like crypto and NFTs and stuff. We're just trying to find the artist government fit.
Well, it's all about who's gonna sponsor me to be mediocre and look up my own belly button.
Only mediocre, like that's if we're looking at everything through the frame of like how much money it can make, really. I mean,
Well, I mean,
maybe we actually really need mediocre artists. Maybe we really need crappy artists in this world. Or no, otherwise,
it's just,
capitalism just
yeah, I mean, it's just hard. Like, I see the young people tweeting, and it's the same stuff I tweeted when I was that age, and it's like,
back when you were a kid tweeting.
I'm back when I was 26 and trying to get out of my own soul, and
Funny
it's
that we can
like,
talk about Twitter is something that we used to do when we were young.
I just passed 66.6 thousand tweets. I'm
Wow.
now into 66.7K.
See, I don't really use Twitter that often. I use it to like kind of check in to see what's going on, and that's about it. I usually get pretty nauseous even looking at it. Um, and the thing is, I think I was addicted for a while of scrolling and reading and clicking and
Well,
liking.
I mean, it's people chatting all day, people thinking out loud all day.
Uh-huh, exactly. It's sending text to the
Is
world all
that the is, and maybe it is the thing to do. It's probably better than going off to war. Probably better than going off and conquering something.
well,
But yeah, like I sort of wish there was a leader.
It's very similar in that it's also a game for a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people are just on there to see how many people can pay attention to them. They're just trying to get as much attention as possible. It's hard not to do that when you see your follower account going up. It's like, oh,
It's a state of being a permanent child, which I guess is fine.
Twitter
I
is a
mean,
game.
it's
I feel like for stuff like whatever, like Facebook and Instagram, they took a lot of the game out of it. I guess a lot of people play the Instagram game to see how many followers they can get to. But when you can't read
yeah.
things like Twitter is just made for people to chase that number. I feel like.
I guess I mean you know it goes back to being an artist, and it's like I like what Oscar Wilde said. It's like the true artist takes no notice whatever of the public. They are to him non-existent.
And that's not what Twitter is.
Well, for me, well, yeah, I mean,
Maybe
for
for
me,
you it is.
the thrill is dancing naked in public, and what don't I even want to find out that I think, and will I stand here on the pedestal and find out what it is live and just keep pushing tweet and just keep tearing my soul open more and more and more, which is really, what I've made that my job. I've declared it's my job, even if no one's paying me to do it. But then eventually you have enough stuff where you can say, oh yeah, like I've been doing this for X number of years. And oh, do you want to come talk to our class? Oh, do you want to do this project? Oh, can you do this? And all of a sudden it's like, well, there's some cash flow. But it's about following your obsessions, right? I mean, I'm sure we've talked about this a million times. It's like, follow your obsessions and just stay alive and keep going. And no matter what you have to do without, keep following that voice and vision.
I think that there's so many people that like are doing something very different. Like I think a lot of young people learn, don't just be a blown paper bag, be a, what is they call it, growth mindset. You need growth mindset. You need to be conquering. It's growth mindset is
Well, I
conquering.
don't know if it's about conquering. I mean, it's sort of funny. The
Scale.
kids learn so much about marketing and venture capital, and yeah, I mean, I wonder who they'll be when they're 30 and 35 and 40. If Carl Jung is right that life starts at 40, everything before is just research.
A lot of my students are, I teach music. I teach music production. I teach an art. It's creative art. There's skill, and then there's art. And then the only business that I teach is I teach the students enough. I teach them that there is that business is part of it. I teach them that they have to, like, if they want to make some money after they graduate, then they have to be good at telling the world what they're good at, and doing it. And like, that is what a lot of my students are. That's what they want. They want that business. They don't care about making the music. They want to make money. I think a lot of not all my students, a lot of my students are just pure artists and they don't care about that at all. But a lot of them, they came to me because they saw my career and they saw what I work on, and they're like, I want to be able to do what he does. I
I
mean,
want to I want to stay up late making a 3-second sound for this client when I'm 41 and a half years old.
it is pretty fun. I mean, I can't deny that. I like doing it. Well, I mean, it's good when, like, yeah, it's to be able to do a creative thing and take pride in it, and then have it be associated with, Dwayne Johnson or whatever, or whoever, whatever next celebrity. They see that and they go, wow, that's cool. So, I mean, when you think of I have a pretty weird job compared to the average person. And so the average person, I tell them what I do and they're like, whoa, I didn't even know that was a thing. And so I tell my students, go become an expert in that thing that nobody knew was a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's how you become successful.
Well, and it gets back to, how one uses Twitter. It's like, you've told me before, tweeting is a pain, it's a task. Whereas if you're doing what you love and you're interested in it, you just naturally express and emote it. And I don't know. And I mean, like this gets into what we might do as writing partners. It's like you got to reduce friction between the thoughts and the keyboard. And it may just be about like becoming a better typist and just like, let me see if I can just write this thought out and then write out this next thought to like match up the speed of thinking, speaking, writing. And then you start to see, okay, I can copy paste that. I have that thought, copy paste that there, put it here, throw it there, start stringing this together. Like you start having a vision of where you can put your feelings.
Music is pretty similar, I think. I think so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think about the world as a big piano or a big guitar, and I'm conducting this symphony of impressions and notifications and messages to people. And it's like my community is my musical instrument.
Mm.
Right. So I'm sending individual things in a very particular
So
to
are you playing something coherent, or are you just jamming?
no, it's certainly, well, to me, and again, here's where I think the artist is always convincing someone of their legitimacy, is because it may appear to be randomness, but to me, I see all the different pieces. No one else does.
Hmm.
Everyone just maybe sees their part of it, and maybe sometimes they wonder, who else is he messaging? I wonder how I am a pie slice in his entire pie. But I don't think many people think that way.
Hmm.
You know, it makes me wonder, who am I to you? And I sometimes wonder that. I mean, like I sometimes wonder, do they think do they know how crazy I am? How would they, like, what's the inner talk when 5 messages appear for me? Is it a, oh God, or is it, I don't know. And maybe I should ask, should talk to my customers. If I'm a good entrepreneur, I should be obsessed with my customers. Jeffrey, I'm obsessed with you. Tell me, how can I help you?
If I get 5 of your messages or 10 of your messages or whatever, usually I'm like, the first thing I think is, oh, that's Geoff. I'll get back to those in a second. Or I'll pick up my phone. I'll be like, thanks for the distraction. Or I'll be like, or it's like
Thanks for the distraction.
I mean, that's usually what it is. I'm like, oh yeah, cool. I'd rather text to Geoff right now. I mean, it's just like it's often what it is. It's kind of like it's like what I imagine having like a robot friend is like in a way.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like I don't know who to talk to, so I'm just gonna message Geoff. I don't know,
yeah,
but I like our relationship in that way. I can kind of like
yeah.
and you know what, like I mean I have I'm in a bunch of chat groups. People, a lot of people are trying to get a hold of me all day long. So it's something that I'm totally used to. And that's why I don't always respond to you right away. I can't and
Well, it's not meant to, like, I mean,
you're right.
some of the things aren't meant to be responded to. The, you read them and like let them hit you. I mean,
Well,
like,
I think that I have a hard time because I'm a responsive person. I will want to respond to things often. I mean that's one of my shortcomings. I think is some people can really take advantage of me when they can tell. I can get under Jeff's skin. I can get him to respond to stuff. That's why I don't like Twitter actually. But no, I think that our chat is more of like it's like a repository of thoughts
mhm,
and things that we want to share with each other or just want to share with ourselves. Sometimes I want to share something with myself in public.
mhm.
I want to share something with myself. Yeah. I want to be like, I am looking at this and I want you to know that I'm looking at it.
Yeah,
Sometimes that happens too.
yeah, yeah. It's like a
Where else can
shared
you do that?
mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have another chat group with like maybe 12 other people in it, and I shit post on that a lot. And like I kind of realized that you know, it's I don't know. I definitely don't consider our chat shit posting. It's not That's not what it is. Sometimes it can seem that way because I have like ideas for songs or lyrics or titles and I'm just writing them. I'm just
mhm.
posting them there. I'm gonna search back to them later or whatever.
I mean, I think a good relationship, and I think ours is there. You reach a certain like like a cadence or like a vibration level where all of a sudden you can shit post and that it just flows out easily. It's like I know the voice and the tone of our chat and like what the rules are and also like what the vision is. Like, I mean, I really am building a kind of frequency with each person I have a relationship with, and
How
I'm
many people
constantly like watering them and like jumping around.
how many people do you chat with like you do with me?
I mean, I think I would say like 20 is like a good a good estimate.
Uh, that's a lot
And
of
like
people to water.
well, I mean,
A lot of
again,
relationships to
you
water.
know how many hours I do it, and I've done whatever I have to do to stay at it. Um,
It's such an interesting thing to take on.
well, yeah, I mean, because it's an obsession with, I mean, it manifests in writing and reading and listening and speaking. Um, I mean, I'm a radical soul, and there's a lot that needs to get done, but also nothing needs to get done. I don't know. I don't know what I'm obsessed with. Is it my vision? Is it a feeling? I don't know. I mean, it's more than a pastime for sure. I mean, I sort of feel like a either an educator or like a priest almost,
Yeah,
like a doctor, and it's like people need
therapist,
need need curing.
therapy. It is therapeutic.
Yeah.
Think of it that way. I mean, if our chat disappeared, if you died tonight, that would make my life a lot different.
Hmm.
I wouldn't be happy about it.
Yeah, that would, hey, GP Lewis funeral tomorrow on Twitter. That sounds I think that would be bewildering for a lot of people, and a lot of people would be feeling a weird loss,
Yeah,
and like wouldn't know what to do with it,
you're
because
right.
people probably don't like. I think everyone who has a relationship with me has a different version of me and has only like a very partial picture.
I mean, there have been times where you haven't messaged me in a few days, and I thought, oh, what's going on? Anyway, all right, I got to wrap this up. This has been an
Okay.
interesting conversation, very like
Yeah.
personal and not personal and
Yeah.
crazy.
From Genghis Khan to Neil Young to
LGBTQ to the GP Lewis funeral.
damn.
Once
Wow.
again, crazy art talk. All right,
That was a good
everybody.
one.
Well, we'll see you next time. First,
Thanks for
see ya.
listening.
Okay, so I'm just gonna stop the recording.